Welcome to the Suspense Squad, where authors interview authors. Tonight, we are very happy to interview suspense author Carrie Stuart Parks. Hey, Carrie. I think I've met you before in person, but it's been a while. So anyway, it's good to see you tonight. And I want to congratulate you on your Best Fiction Award on your novel Fallout that we're going to talk about tonight. So do you have your book with you where you can show us and read the back cover for us? Awesome.
Oddly enough, I have just now found a copy of the book. So, here I can read it. After a difficult childhood, Samantha Williams craves simplicity, jigsaw puzzles, lectures at the library, and the students she adores in her role as an elementary school art teacher in the dusty farming community of La Crosse, Washington. But when an SUV crashes into the building where she's teaching, her entire world is upended. Samantha manages to keep the children safe, but her car isn't so lucky. Oddly, her purse with her driver's license, credit card, and other identification is missing from the wreckage. After authorities discover that the driver of the accident was shot seconds before the crash, Samantha quickly becomes entangled in increasingly strange events that have her constantly looking over her shoulder. Samantha has long tried to forget the tragedy of her past, but the twisting connections she discovers between the murdered driver, a deadly secret government project, and an abandoned town can't be ignored. Those involved are determined to keep the secrets buried, and they'll use any means necessary to stop Samantha's search for the truth.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And I like that cover.
I did too. We kind of went round and round on this one because I wanted it to look like an ordinary house that's creepy. So they sent me, I don't know, I usually accept the first thing they send me, but this is like about the fourth one. And I kept saying, no, creepier. No, not a Western town, just creepy town, creepy house, creepy lights, creepy, strange colors, creepy. And they got it.
You did guess, Carrie, you wanted creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy. Yeah.
To make adjustments like that quite a bit. Like, do you have a lot of control over your cover?
Yes, I do. I don't have, I mean, I name all my books. Actually, I started to, and then they always changed the name. So I ended up calling it New Book, but new book with the dog in it, So I stopped even worrying about the names. And on the cover, they have you cut out or send them all kinds of pictures of elements from the book. So I did that. And then I'm always excited to see what they come up with, because they have this is Thomas Nelson. They have very, very talented artists that do the work on it. But this one, it just took a little longer to get the feel that I wanted without looking like a Western. And some of the pictures were too Western. So you expect a cowboy to come riding up the road. It takes place in Eastern Washington, and it's in 1987. So it needs to be present day, pretty much present day kind of thing. Well, present day for me. So yeah, I mean, I have like veto power. I try not to use it a lot. I mean, if it's close to what I like, I'll say, oh, that's great. So I like that.
That would count as one of your questions. I was just wanting to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have several of our squad team members that do have questions for you. So we're going to start that off, and I believe Sammy will be the first one.
Hi, Carrie. How you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we all know you're an author, obviously, but tell us about your other jobs. And I'm talking about the artsy thing and the little white fur ball thing. Well,
okay. Well, so the dogs, let's start with the dogs because they were just kind of hanging around. The dogs have been in my life since I was 8 years old. Well, my folks got their first Great Pyrenees. And over the years, they had a Great Pyrenees kennel, which I inherited when they passed. And I am now a 50+ year member of the Great Pyrenees Club of America. I'm the former president. I'm on the Judges Education Committee, and I'm an AKC judge. But
Oh,
that is
Oh.
basically, it's my hobby. The dogs have provided me with income when things were really, right after college and so on, because I could groom dogs. So I was a professional dog groomer. I could train dogs. So I did that. I could, work in vet hospitals as a technician. So I did, the dogs were always kind of my standby when I need a job kind of thing. So they've always been a part of my life. The other part, kind of my day job, is as a fine and forensic artist. As a forensic artist, I started out in 1981, which was kind of amazing because I wasn't born for another like 20 years after that.
Looking good, Carrie, looking good.
What the heck? Go for it. I started out working for a crime lab. Because of my art background, I'm going to tilt that down a little bit. Because of my art background, I was asked to go out, become a forensic artist. And I studied the FBI Academy and so on. And so that became a part of my life as well, as to become a forensic artist. And then starting in 1989, I started teaching forensic art. So over the years, between my husband and myself, who I met at the FBI Academy, we traveled across the US and Canada teaching forensic art to law enforcement professionals. So it's always fun, when you watch some of those true crime stories, because a lot of times my students' work is in it. It's like, oh, I taught them everything they know. I take credit for it. The fine art, at one point, I tried to make a go of it as a fine artist. My medium is drawing and watercolor. I did actually, I do have one here. The first books I ever did were for Northlight Publishing, and I did 5 books for them on how to draw and how to paint in watercolor. It was kind of my introduction to writing. But how hard is it to say, okay, this is the end of the pencil you sharpen? It just doesn't take a lot of work to do that. This is an eraser, okay? This is a pencil. This is a eraser. This is hard on your paper. This is the end you sharpen. It's just not riveting. So I started writing novels much later. So at one point when I was doing a lot of the watercolors, I'm an IWS, that is an award designation. I was producing between 150 and 250 paintings a year. So I was very prolific at watercolor. Not so much now because all of the other things have stepped up and so on. You can't do the dogs and the forensics and the writing and the fine art, and still be sane and live where I live. So it's some things, as long as all the deadlines don't come at once, I'm usually pretty good. It's deadlines that always get you.
You got your hands on a lot. Okay, our next question is going to come from Patty.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I always am interested in authors who gain inspiration from other authors. And so one of my questions that I ask a lot of people is, if you could interview somebody, an author, for either living or dead, who would you talk to and why?
Well, I am so blessed in that my mentor was Frank Peretti, who mentored me for 8 years. So I got an awful lot of chances to talk to him, both good and bad when he didn't like my work. I don't know. I was thinking about that. I know through ACFW and Blue Ridge and a lot of the writing conferences that we are blessed to have a society, a group of us that we can get together and compare notes and talk to. And I do also go on short retreats, like in the last day of February, 1st of March, I think that's when it was. Lynette Eason and a couple of others, we went to the Billy Graham Center and just did a writing retreat there, just the 4 of us. I mean, there was a lot of rude people going there for other reasons, but we kind of like staked out an area, and we just did this our private writing retreat, and I've done that a lot of times with like Colleen Coble. I mentioned Lynette already, Robin Carroll, just a variety of different writers, and we've picked a location and we go there and just write with them and pick each other's brains. I don't know about past writers, because the one thing I've found is that, when you look at classics like Hemingway or Steinbeck or Agatha Christie or any of the classics, the way they write today is not the way we write nowadays. And their world is not our world. Even asking Frank, for example, about, okay, what is it going to take to get published? He had no clue. He had absolutely no clue. He wrote his first book. He sold his children's books. That first book kind of fell into it. And from there, it was all taken care of. And so he doesn't know. I think he got an agent later, kind of thing. He wasn't one that actually knew what we go through now. And I think that's the case, particularly, I'll say, Christian writing field. But if we talk to somebody in the past, they may write differently. We may like the way they write, but their world is very different. The taste of the readership is very different now. And I think I would concentrate with people that are kind of in my world, if you will, people like you guys that I love you.
Well, our next person that has a question for you is Darlene.
Hi, Carrie. It's good to see you again.
Me?
So, us writers are always curious on what other writers' processes are. So, can you tell us how you plot out your stories? Is there a method you use or anything like that?
So I start with, generally speaking, I start with a location, because that kind of tells me a little bit about it. So I'll just talk about, I'll talk about Fallout. Okay. Fallout, I wanted to write a book that was somewhere where I could drive to it, because a lot of the locations, if I have to go visit it, we're adding that much onto timing. When can I get over there? When can I take the time off to drive there and be there for the amount of time and so on. So in Fallout, I wanted it to be in a place I could drive to, and I wanted it to be in a place where nothing ever happens. So just totally nothing ever happens. So those were the two criteria. And I literally closed my eyes and put my finger down on a map and came up with La Crosse, Washington. I mean, that was how I came up with it. It was really original. But I'll start with that, and then I'll think, okay, what other things are going on historically or present day? What's going on around it that I can weave into the story? So I know that my character is going to be female. I know there's going to be dogs. What can I say? I know there'll be art or forensic art or some kind of art in it. And it'll be some kind of a murder mystery kind of thing. So I know those things already. So I get a location, and then I just start looking about all the things I need to know about that place. And will that lend itself to a plot? So the one that I turned in, my younger brother mentioned, well, why don't you put a story in Lake Pend Oreille, which is north of us. It's the 5th deepest lake in America. And he keeps his boat up there. So I can go up there and sit in his boat and come up with ideas. So I went up there, and immediately some things jumped out at me. For one thing, it's a naval submarine base from World War II. And it was because in World War II, they needed to move the Navy base off of the eastern and western seaboard in case the Japanese attacked. They didn't want to wipe out all their recruits. So was there a place further inland that had a train station, had a lake, had a way they could train people? And so Farragut became the largest naval training station in America at the end of World War II. And I thought, well, I can do something. I can do something either past with the naval base or present with the submarines. So now I've got an idea. Okay, now I got a submarine base. I have an artist. So I start putting all those things together, and I get 3x5 cards, and I just write like crazy, all the different ideas, everything that comes to mind, to see what kind of starts to stick together and where is there a story. And then I start to interview people to see if they could flesh it out. And I do what's called mind mapping, which is basically a way in which you write your ideas. In fact, if you give me screen control, I've got a mind map loaded up behind this. Let me do this real quick.
Cool.
Okay, so this is a mind map, and the center is just the name of the book, and then the points. Okay, the opening, where the different crises are going around it like this. And then all the different thoughts, I start finding a place, well, where do I introduce this clue or this character or this person? And this works the way the mind works. So I can put clues, characters, plot points, and it goes in a circle because I want to have however we start it, I want it to come full circle around. So it reminds me, I'm bringing you back to how it started. And I just throw all the different ideas down on something like that. And then gives me the order of the events, the major scenes, when to reveal the information, when to introduce characters, what to reveal about the character, and the clues. And you're not actually writing much of anything. It's not an outline. It's just a way to get those thoughts down. So it may start looking something like this. So the main idea, inciting incident, mirror moment, all the points that I have to hit on, and where do these things come in? Then I'll go out on the internet, and this is what a more complicated one. It can look scrambled like this, doesn't matter. Then I go out and I start finding photographs of, okay, what kind of dog is it? This is a different story, but what does Kodiak Island look like? Is there going to be a gun in it? What's the hunka hero guy look like? Or the police? And I get
That's very
pictures.
important.
And this is my storyboard. So that I stack this storyboard up so that when I look at a picture, I'll say, okay, in this scene, which takes place in the marina, what happens? And because I'm looking at it, I can think of things. What does it smell? What does it taste? I can think of all the different things that has to do with it.
All right, we have one more question for you, and that one is going to come from Shannon.
Hello, Miss Carrie. It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
All right, I am going to ask you, and you were kind of talking about setting and how you pick your settings. This kind of leads into that a little bit. If you could live anywhere for 1 year and write a book with that place as the setting, where would you choose and why?
Actually, where I live right now is a slice of heaven. Of course, I'd like it to be spring rather than winter. I live on 685 acres in the mountains, and I look out and see elk and deer and bear and coyote and all kinds of critters running around the yard. We don't have anybody around us. I don't know, I just love it. I like visiting other places, like to do the research. I went to South Carolina. I went up to Kodiak Island. I like going to other places, but this particular spot is the place I want to be. I grew up here. This has been in my family for 3 generations now. That's why it's so much acreage. Is 3 generations, and it's really quite beautiful. So
Carrie, we appreciate you joining us tonight. It's been so much fun talking to you, and you've given us so much information. So I think we kind of put some nuggets in our own caps right now. We appreciate your time. And so anyone watching this video, if you would like to read one of Carrie's novels, you can go to #1, Amazon.com, or Barnes & Noble Books, christianbook.com, or wherever books are sold.